Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to do a standalone today. Now, it is a part of a series. It's called the Filthy Billionaires series by Evelyn Austin, who's a new author on this channel. However, each one of the books can be read as a standalone. And so today we are going to dive into book one, which is called The Mistress Contract. We meet Madeline Swanson, and every time I read the word Swanson, I think of Parks and Rec and our boy Ron Swanson. Shout out to Parks and Rec. Wonderful show. She is on her way to a job interview that's for an assistant. The pay is crazy. And so she's super excited because she needs this. Like, this can make a really huge difference for her. So she goes to the Montage in Los Angeles, and this, of course, very ritzy hotel. And she's just kind of like, well, why would someone be holding a interview for an assistant here? She's running late because it was raining, so she had a hard time getting there. The woman brings her in with all the other women. These women are gorgeous. And she's kind of looking like, wow, like, why are they so overdressed for an assistant interview? Like, this doesn't make sense. So she gets called to go up to the penthouse, which, again, is weird. Why am I going up to a penthouse? But she goes up. She walks in, stunning penthouse, of course, and she goes, oh, I've got to be in the wrong place. This is way too ritzy. She's got on like a plain skirt. She had to borrow that from her roommate, Sam. She's also her friend as well. So it's just kind of like, this isn't going to work. So then a guy comes out, super hot, like 6+ feet, dark hair, blue eyes. She's stunned. He's absolutely beautiful to her. And he says his name is Evan, and it's in a British accent. And you already know you're a goner at that point, unless you just hate the British accent. She gives her name. She's Madeline. The interview begins. She tells him, I'm sorry I don't have my resume. She said she forgot it, but she didn't. What happened was because I was like, you're not going to forget your resume on the way to an interview. That's like really unlikely. I'm not saying it could never happen, but that's pretty unlikely. But what happened was she doesn't have money for the ink, so she wasn't able to print it out. I was like, oh. When she was downstairs, they did give her a form to like fill out, and she did feel like this questionnaire was like a little too personal. Like, it was asking about her sex history. She thought it was weird, but she filled out most of it, and he's looking it over, and he's looking at her very intensely, and she, of course, feels a spark. But again, she's like, I'm out of my element. This is a mistake, me coming here. And she kind of feels everything kind of drain out of her face, because she really thought that this was going to change her life. She's having financial difficulties. She's a full-time student at Caltech, engineering, aerospace, something like that is what she's majoring in. And so she clearly is super smart. She's tried to get as many shifts as she could at the coffee shop, and they give her extra when they can, but it's like, this is not looking good, and she had so much hope walking into this interview. And one of the questions that she didn't answer was, are you on birth control? And she felt like, well, that's none of their business. She doesn't have a boyfriend. Not that you have to have a boyfriend to do that, but she just felt like that's not relevant, Because in her head, she's thinking, wow, this guy doesn't want to have to pay for maternity leave, and so therefore he wants his employees to be on birth control. This is where her mind is, right? So then he tells her, take your clothes off. And she goes, what? Evan says, I mean, we'll be fucking, so it shouldn't be that strange. She, of course, is looking like, what the fuck? Like, what is this interview for? And he says, this is an interview to be my mistress. Like, what did you expect? So she starts walking backwards, trips, but he catches her, and then she feels his hard body. It's sending tingles all throughout her. He caresses her face with his thumb, glides it across her lip, and he puts some pressure on her mouth, and she finds herself allowing him to push it further into her mouth and full on sucking it. And he's going in and out, very much mimicking fucking, you know? And so she's thinking like she would love for him to like fuck her and how she wouldn't mind doing anything he asked of her. But then when he said, on your knees, spell was broken. She broke away. She's like, this isn't for me. You need to go back to that group of prostitutes downstairs. And then he tells her, he yells out, this isn't over. But she got out of there and started thinking of the revenge that she is going to think up for her friend Sam, who is the one that told her about this job. So Madeline leaves, gets to the coffee shop. She goes in, and Sam, we find out, knew exactly what this was. She did it because to her it was like, this fixes your problems. You know, your living expenses would be taken care of. You know, all of your financial issues would be taken care of. You know? And so, as a natural question, Madeline's like, well, why didn't you do it? You know? And she's like, well, I think my boyfriend would probably have a problem with me sleeping with a billionaire. Then she goes, maybe not. I guess it depends on the perks. So she doesn't know who the guy is. She did no research. She didn't ask too many questions, I guess. And so Sam was like, I would have thought you would have freaked out when you saw him. Like you would have been really happy. And she's like, well, why is that? And she's like, he's Evan Cole, the founder, CEO of X-Verse Space Technologies. Now, she had thought Evan Cole was like this old guy. So she's never really looked him up. And so when he said his name was Evan, she was just like, okay. She's just more so looking at him physically like, damn, he's hot, you know. But she didn't put two and two together. So Sam Googles the guy, holds up the picture and was like, is this the guy? And she goes, oh my gosh, it's him. Like she had no idea who she was in the room with. So she's got to present, I want to say her thesis or something for her PhD. She's trying to get into the PhD program. And she's doing that along with working this job. And she shares an apartment with like 5 other girls. She's still a week late on rent. She's eating ramen noodles, 2-day-old pizza. It's a lot she's got going on, you know? So we fast forward a week. Sam comes through the door and she's like, what are you doing here? Your class starts in 10 minutes. So Madeline's like, oh shoot, like I gotta go. She's like, I've been studying, I just lost track of time. So she gets to the class 3 minutes before it starts, but unfortunately that means she doesn't get the good seats up front. I'm sorry, she doesn't get the seats in the back, which is where she wanted to be. She's got to sit in the front. And they're in this much larger space today, not their normal classroom, because they've got a speaker. Yes, it is Evan Cole. He comes through the door. All the blood drains from our girl Madeline's face. Evan comes in, she sees him, he's looking at everyone else, and then he sees her, but there's not this shock look on his face. It's almost like he expected to see her. But then she's like, that couldn't make sense, you know, like, there's no way he would know my schedule, like, that's not possible. So the thought that he had purposely done this to see her, it's like, at first, it seems like, is that what this is? And then she's like, no, that's ridiculous, like, that would never happen. He's a wonderful speaker, very engaging. He starts speaking. His presentation was about the innovation of the rotating detonation rocket engine that will allow upper stage rockets to become lighter, faster, and more efficient. And it's so intriguing, she finds herself taking real notes. Even though she had tried to fake taking notes at first so she wouldn't like have to look up at him. But then it starts being, so interesting. She's taking those real notes. He does have a very brilliant mind. So he looks at her again and she can't breathe, like all the oxygen going out of the room. And then finally he tears his eyes away from her. And then uh when he turns, she kind of sees like he had like there was an effect. Like him looking at her, he had it affected him. And she's like, I gotta get out of here. So class is over with. He goes, stands right at the exit door, shaking everyone's hand. She's like, I'm not gonna be able to avoid him. But then she realizes she can go up the stairs and she can leave out that way. And that's exactly what she does. And when she looks back, she gives him a smirk and heads out. So she goes to work at the cafe. It's 3 o'clock. Normally it's dead at this time, but people need a second jolt and around this time of year with like the exams and things like that coming up. So Keith works there as well. And I want to say he's a part of the same program that she's in. And he's like, thank God you're here. Like, it just got really busy. So he's leaving out. Sam's there. And she's telling her, Keith has got a thing for you. She's like, whatever. Like she's not paying any attention to that. So they get the line down. And then Sam grabs her arm. She's like, oh my gosh. And she doesn't want to believe it, but she knows it. It's exactly who she thinks she is. Sure enough, sitting down in the damn coffee shop is fucking Evan Cole. So of course her friend Sam is like, "Oh my gosh, do you see him? I bet he's here to see you." She like, "There's no way, there's no way." So Sam eventually goes over there. She's going to find out what it is that he wants because Madeline doesn't have the courage to go do it. So Sam goes over. Madeline's cleaning, but she's trying to listen, pay attention at the same time. Eventually Sam comes back over and says, "Oh, he wants a double cappuccino and you." And she goes, "I'm not for sale." She's like, "Well, he wants to talk to you, so you need to go over there and tell him that yourself." So she goes over, she does the whole like, "Okay, what do you want?" He's like, "Let's take a walk. I heard you have a break." So she's like, "You get 5 minutes." He's like, "I thought your break was 15 minutes. She says it is, but you're only getting 5 minutes. So she takes him to this little garden place, whatever, that's secluded. No one's really there. It's got a gate. And so they go in and she makes the comment like pretty much she doesn't understand why he is doing auditions like someone like him. Like, I wouldn't think you would have to do that. And he's like, "What do you mean, someone like me?" And she's like, rich, successful, handsome. He perks up. So then he's like, "I have certain dark needs, and everyone can't fulfill them." So that's why he does the whole thing of finding the mistress. So when he says it, it excites her, and it shouldn't, but it does. So she said something about, how did she say it? Something about like going back interviewing those women. And he's like, "What if I already found the person?" She won't look at him. So he like took her arms and wrists, put them above her head, had her against the wall, and said, "Madeline," and then just crushed on her lips. And the girl is a fucking goner. They have this hot, intense kiss. She's grabbing at him, the top of his jacket, trying to pull him closer. His hands are in her hair. They're just trying to get closer to each other. It's crazy. And he was just like, "God, man, God, Maddie." It was just so much. He said Madeline. He doesn't call her Maddie. He said he wanted to fuck her. And that broke the spell for her because it felt so intense. Sometimes things that feel intense can feel like it means more, but it can just be intense sexual attraction. And she's like, "No, no, 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 no." Clearly for him, she feels and she says that this is just the thrill of the chase, and she's not giving in. But he let her know he's not going to give up so easily. We get a little backdrop and we find out that her dad, when he was married to her mom, used to cheat on her a lot. So he had a lot of mistresses. Damn near broke her mother. So she's not trying to be that for somebody else. Because I guess with him saying mistress, it sounded like he's already married. I don't know if that's the situation. But I think that's what she automatically thought. And that word, of course, has a horrible taste in her mouth. And she's like, no. But I don't think it means that. But he's going to have to explain that to her. So she goes back into the coffee shop. Sam, of course, is like, what happened? I know something happened, but she won't tell Sam anything. Sam's like, I'll just get you drunk. So she is having a hard time going to sleep that night because she wants so bad to get herself off to the thought about of that kiss. We fast forward 2 days later. She's in class. She gets a ding. It's an email. It's from Evan Cole. And it reads, from Cole Evan to Swanson Madeline. Subject, negotiations. Think of this as a jumping off point for negotiations. Evan, P.S. I can still taste you on my tongue. The mistress contract is attached to the email, but she will not open it. She's like, there's no need to even entertain this. She's not doing it. So she goes on to her next class. She gets home. She tells Sam and her roommates about the email. They, of course, they want to read it. Eventually she opens it up. Sam reads it, and she's like, this is like everything for you. He pays rent. You're close to campus. You get a car. You get a monthly allowance for clothes, like whatever else you might need. He pays your tuition. It solves a lot of her problems by doing this contract. But she, of course, is doing the whole nope, not going to happen at all stance. So one of the roommates, I think her name was Cassie, was like, basically, why not? And the other roommate, Avery, was like, well, she doesn't have to do anything she doesn't want to do, you know? So Maddie's like, thank you. You know, somebody has my back. So she says, I have a whole issue with the word mistress itself, based on what happened with her parents. Sam is like, but it's not like that. If you read it, it says mistress, but you're exclusive to one another. There's no other partner. You're not in any other relationship. So she's like, oh. So then the other two girls leave because they've got class. And then her and Sam are talking. And Sam is like, look. Sam brought up all of it. Sam was like, look. You haven't had sex in years. You've only had one boyfriend your whole life. He broke up with you because he was intimidated by you. Because you got a full ride to Caltech. Whereas he couldn't get out of his state. He could only get like a local state college scholarship or whatever it was. And his name was Jason. And what did she say? She's like, also, what happened was he broke up with her on Christmas break. So they were going to be together. They were doing the long distance relationship, okay? Not even a few weeks after she left, he was already banging somebody else and got the bitch pregnant. So, and yes, I called her a bitch. She got pregnant. So when she came back on Christmas break, she gets dumped and finds out that he's got this woman pregnant and he's going to marry her. It destroyed her. She loved this man so much. And she just was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm good. Like, it's just not worth it. But Sam is telling her, like, let's be honest. If you don't go to your father for the money, so the father's very rich. And when she was 18, he left a trust fund for her. So there's tons of money that's sitting there for her. She won't touch it because she says it's just his guilt money and she doesn't want it. But Sam is like, listen, you're going to have to do something because there's the tuition payment coming up and you don't have the money. You still owe me $340. You're eating ramen noodles. You're not making it. You're not. This is something that will solve the problem and help you not have to go back to your father to ask for the money that you don't want to ask for. You know? And I like that she broke it down with her, kind of letting her know your options are pretty slim. They are pretty slim. She goes to sleep that night And she's kind of going back and forth. She's still trying to say no, but it's like at the same time, it's like the guy is trying to open up negotiations with you. Do you think he does this probably with other people? Like he's trying to get you to do something that will work for you. We'll see. So the next day, she gets up. She was having a dream about him saying it was like a whole erotic scene. It was so hot. She's eating some stale cereal when she wakes up, and she decides to send him an email saying that she has questions about this thing. Like, what guarantee would she have that he wouldn't just change his mind? And now financially, she's screwed because she's completely dependent on him. She had some other questions too about, safeguards in place for her. So his whole thing was, why are you fighting this? You know, I know you felt what I felt when we kissed. I know you want me, you know? So he asked her out to dinner. They're doing this back and forth. She doesn't say anything. She closes down her laptop. She's going to go to the coffee shop in about, she's supposed to be there in about 30 minutes. She's got a shift. And when she gets there, it's slow, thankfully. So her and Keith are studying. Because, again, he's in the aerospace program as well. So she's studying, and then someone says, "Excuse me." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the door." It is our boy, Evan. She, of course, is like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "You didn't answer my question." She's like, "You didn't answer any of mine." He's like, "You can ask me anything over dinner. Have dinner with me tonight at 8." She, of course, is like, "No, there's no point, X, Y, and Z." She walks off, tells Keith, "I'm taking my break." She leaves. So she thinks she's evaded him. He pops up in the bathroom where she is. And she doesn't know if she's strong enough to say no again. He comes towards her. She has on like a crop top, no bra, and the minute he comes in the bathroom, her nipples get hard. She's got her hair in a messy bun. He comes up to her, he grabs her nipple. She loves that feeling, that pain, that pleasure. And then he, of course, kisses her. Then he goes under her shirt, lifts it up, starts playing with her nipples, and then he winds up sucking on her titties. And then he starts fingering her. And right when she's about to come, and also the first thing he said when he put his finger in her pussy was like, "Oh my God, you're so wet," telling her how tight she was. And he stopped. Tell me yes. Tell me you come to dinner with me. And so because she's so close to being about to come, she agrees to have dinner with him. And that's when he takes his fingers out, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'll see you at 8." And before she can say anything, he walks out. So she goes home. Sam, of course, helps her get ready. She's trying on different dresses, but they're all too tight because Sam is smaller than her. But Sam had a dress from like 3 years ago when she had gone through a bad breakup, and it was a dress. Was it for a wedding? I can't remember. But she gained a little weight. She puts that on, and it fits her nicely. And she gives her some nice silver strappy heels, and tells her, "I have some brand new underwear I haven't worn. You need them." And she's like, "No one's going to see my underwear." She's like, "Listen, underwear, they make you feel powerful and sexy. And they do have that effect on you. They really do make you feel wonderful when you have them on. Like sexy underwear, they do that." So, sure enough, she puts them on, and that's how it makes her feel. And so 8:01 hits, dude knocks on the door. He looks delicious as ever. Sam, of course, is like, "I won't wait up." And so then they go to the limo. She gets in first. She scoots all the way to the window. He's like, "I don't bite." And then he started telling her about how during the business meeting he was at, how he could still taste her nipples and how he wants to taste other things. And she's looking at his dick. He's already hard. She's like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "Hopefully we'll get into some other things later on." So they get to this place. It's called the Exeter House, which is like this really exclusive place in Malibu. And she states that I guess even presidents have tried to get into this place and they've been declined access to the club. So there's like restaurants and things attached to it that you can get into. But then they also have a place where it's a club. It's also a place where you can live, like penthouses and stuff like that. And he has a place there. And so she, of course, is like, she's going because even they're going to the restaurant. This is like a once in a lifetime thing, that some celebrities can't even get into this place, okay? So they go in, it's beautiful, um, wonderful ambiance. They sit down. Doesn't look like there's anybody else in here though. The waitress comes up. She seems a little flirty. They're speaking in French. He orders the whole thing in French. She did remember reading that his mother was French. So he speaks it fluently. And he ordered her meal. And the waitress leaves. And so she asks him, what's the whole reason for having a contract? What's the point? And why is the word mistress in the contract? He says, if you don't like the word mistress, we can always just use another word. He's like, we can just say the contract. She's like, okay, but what's the point? What's the need of it? And he's like, well, it's to protect us both. He's like, he's honest about the whole I don't do the love thing, right? It's not an option. He figured she would understand that and that this would work out. This is a good fit. And she wants to know, okay, am I just at your beck and call? Is there like a notice? Like how far in advance? Um, a week, 2 weeks? Like he says 24 hours. She's like 72. He's like 24. He's like, I know you have school, you have a life. I'm not trying to take over your life, but I do want to be at the top of the list. He's like, if it's not something that, you know, outside of like those important things, I would like to be at the top of your list of who you choose. So she's not drinking. She feels like she needs to keep her head clear with this guy because he is a smooth talker. He notices she's not drinking. He's like, you don't trust yourself? And she says, no, I don't. Um, I like that she was honest about that. The interesting thing to me about this is it very much making me think about 50 Shades of Grey, when they were doing the emailing with the contract and all that type of stuff. It's giving me that vibe, but it's cute. I still like it. I still like it. I forgot to mention she also threw out there, and when they were in the limo, about just doing a one night stand, and he's like, no, that's not going to work for me. He's like, I just had a taste of you, and that's not enough. So I know if I get all of you, one time is not going to be enough. They also, well, she brought up also about, her inexperience. He, of course, has a lot of experience, and she let him know, listen, I've only been with one person, you know. The first time we were together, I was 15, and he was like, I don't need a play-by-play. He's like, but the fact that you are inexperienced just means that I can kind of mold you into my pleasures. You'll be more receptive maybe to someone who's not experienced as much. It works better for him with her being that way, being inexperienced. The meal comes. She dives in. Of course, this is so good to this girl. You gotta remember, the girl been eating ramen noodles and 2 day old pizza. So this steak is beyond delicious to her. She starts drinking some wine at that point. He tells her that he does have a penthouse at the Exeter. But he's booked a room in the hotel as well. He doesn't let anyone come to his private residence. That makes her feel some type of way because even though he's trying to strip the emotion out of it, this is still a relationship. There's a contract. A contract, that's a relationship. Those are promises that are being made. It You're trying to say it's not a relationship, but it is. It's just devoid of feeling. Because you can have a relationship and not be in love with a person, or like a person. You know what I mean? So it's still a relationship, especially if you're not supposed to be fucking nobody else anyway. But then it's like your home. You don't want to share that part with me, but I guess that kind of makes sense when they're stripping emotion from the equation. It kind of makes sense that this would be a stipulation of his. Doesn't shock me that much, is what I'm saying. So she, thinks, he's high profile, he's a billionaire. I get it. Maybe he got burned in the past. No biggie. She just goes with it. So they get in the car and she asked him, it was something she asked him because he was like, I just have one question, is what he said to her. He starts kissing her. It's so intense. And his touches just overwhelm all of her senses. And so whatever thoughts she kind of had, they kind of go out the window. So he puts it to her. This is the question. Is the driver going to take you back home? Or are we going to go back to the Exeter house and you sign the contract? So he's gotten her super hot and bothered. He's already told her outside of this kiss and this and that, he's not going to fuck her unless that contract is signed. And so they're riding along. Eventually, she says yes. So then he tells the driver, take us back to the Exeter hotel. They get back to the hotel, pulls out the contract, puts all the different amendments. Like, I think he did agree to like a 48-hour notice if he wants to see her, certain little stuff like that. So all the different little amendments that she wanted, he made those corrections and put it in front of her to read. So she looks it over, and she had told him at the restaurant that her hard no's were no group sex, no videotaping, no anal. And he was like, have you ever tried anal? And she's like, no, and I wouldn't demean myself like that. And he just kind of lets her know, like, your body's going to be mine. So I don't know if he put that one in one of the amendments, because it didn't sound like at the restaurant that he was saying that he was going to go for that. So I don't think so. The contract's going to be for 1 year, which I think is good. That's enough money to stash money away, because you got to think she's going to be getting an allowance. She doesn't spend that much money anyway. You know what I'm saying? All of her stuff that she needs is going to be paid for. Like, she just has to focus on her schooling. This works great. You know what I mean? There's some other factors that clearly we know are going to pop up. But for the right now, I think it could work. So she signs on the dotted line, and as soon as she does, he swoops her up, starts kissing her, puts her on the table, snatches her panties off, fingers her, starts eating her pussy. He made her come, and then he starts taking his clothes off, and she's like spent, like already. It's like, oh my gosh. And so she can't wait to have him again. It's a lot. She knows he's gonna be a lot. That's for sure. He takes everything off but her sandals. Well, no, I'm sorry. He tells her to take off everything but her because she has on like these strappy heel sandals. He takes the condom out. He has to go slow at first because he's a lot bigger than anything she's ever had, and then it's already been like years since she's had any. And so at first he was like, she was touching his chest and stuff like that, and he clearly liked it. It turned him on, and then she starts touching his dick. He's sticking long, and it took some for him to work himself in, and he couldn't take it because he was like, oh my god, you're just so tight. And he fucked her. She came. He might have fucked her twice, and she came. I want to say he did. Then he took the condom off. Before he came, though, he nutted on her stomach. And then he took the nut and like rubbed it all on her stomach and her titties. And he told her he wanted to come again on her, come again. Um, he wanted her to come again. I'm sorry. And he told her to rub her pussy, and she started doing it. She comes again. He's still not done. He's saying to her like you're mine, like I own you, all this type of stuff, right? So then he gets another condom out, and I want to say he takes his tie, and he ties it around her eyes, and then some kind of way has it around her neck as well. It's a whole contraption he just did. And he tells her to trust him. He pounds into her. The sensations are very overwhelming for her, which made her move. and that tightened that was around her neck. Well, that made her start to freak out. And he was like, if you don't want to try this, we can stop right now. But I do want you to understand that this is something I want to do with you. So because she could hear the longing, which I don't like, I just hear manipulation. I'm just saying. I just hear fucking manipulation. Um, he's, saying to her, this is something I want. It would please me. And she finds herself wanting to please him. And so she's like, it's okay, I'll do it. So she winds up coming again. So after that, she spent, it was so intense. It's only been an hour and the girl done had like 3 orgasms. And he tells her, we're just getting started. He had told her, I'm going to have you all night. I'm going to fuck you all night. And he kept saying to her that whole thing about, I've marked you. That's what he said. Not I own you. I've marked you. You're mine. I'm like, ugh. We find out they had an all-nighter, just like he said. So after he took her to the tub, washed her off, and he joined her. He made her come again in the tub. They got in the bed. They kissing. They're touching each other. She fell asleep. They took like a little cat nap. She woke up. He was fucking her. She came again. Um, and then when she woke up the next morning, he was gone. She's not mad about this, okay? To her, it took out the awkwardness. They've enjoyed themselves. Great. We don't have to say what are we gonna say to each other. That's gone. Um, she took a shower. She of course had to put on the same dress she had on the night before. And there's a Tiffany box or a Tiffany and Co box on the table with a note that says, I want you to wear this. And it says you'll get more details from my assistant later on. And it'll be more details about with the contract. So she opens it up. It's got an infinity symbol and it's got 2 diamonds on the side of it. And he has an infinity tattoo. Normally someone would think like infinity, like, oh my gosh, I love you forever, I want you forever, but you already know he's removed emotion, so it's not that. Um, it's got to be based upon something else. So she walks outside. The driver's like, where to? Takes her back to her apartment. Sam comes out. Tell me everything. I want it all. Did you sign? All this type of stuff. Um, she of course said, yes, I signed the contract. It was beyond amazing. She's got 5 solid days to study for an exam that she's got coming up. And now she doesn't have to scramble to work and figure out a way to feed herself. She can just focus on her schooling. However, you already know the downside to this is that feelings are not something that you can control. So she's a little worried because she knows that she's never felt anything that intense. But again, I don't know if it's the intense sexual experiences that you're having, because sex with the other guy was never like this. So you don't know what it is, but at the same time, she feels like it's just a matter of time before she falls, and that's what she's afraid of. And as she should be. Sure enough, she gets a call from Miriam, who's his assistant, later that day, and she's making all the arrangements, getting, her sizes, letting her know the moving truck is going to be there the next day to move her to the cottage that's like close to campus. And the next day, she moves. So Wednesday comes, she gets a text message from him saying that he wants to see her at 6 o'clock tonight. She's eating with Sam and Keith, and Sam automatically knows that was him, wasn't it? Oh, he also asked her to wear the necklace as well. So Keith made the comment, I heard you quit the coffee shop. And she said, yeah, I was just it was hindering my studies. But we all know why she really quit. She has money now. He put like 20 grand in her student account so she can eat whatever she wants. So this is looking like a beautiful experience. Especially when you don't have the finances hanging over you. She can really just concentrate on her studies. So that's awesome. So then she leaves out, and oh, I forgot something. She was asking them if they knew how to break, like, what's the word? Not break a lock, pick a lock. And Keith said, "Yeah, you can do it. You need two bobby pins." And he like drew out this diagram of how to do it. So in her little cottage, there's a room. There's no key for it. She had called Miriam to try and get the key, but she just said the only person that has a key is Mr. Cole. That's it. So she goes home. She tries to break in. She can't get in. She decides to go shower, and she gets to do her guilty pleasure, which is her pop songs. She's dancing on the bed, and then boom, guess who pops up? Staring at her from the door is Evan. So he's like 2 hours earlier than what he was supposed to be, like the time frame. And she's like, "How much did you see?" And he's like, "Enough to see your ass in the air." She's like, "Oh my gosh." So then he tells her how he doesn't want any secrets. He asked her where was the necklace, and she said, "Well, you weren't supposed to be here for another couple of hours, you know?" But then he says, "I want you to wear it all the time." Then he tells her, "I'm going to come in your mouth." And so, sure enough, that's what happens. She sucks him off. It comes down her throat. So then he tells her to get up and get against the wall. And he had like her face against the wall. And at first she stalled when he told her to do it, but then she did it. And then he goes and he opens that room that she was trying to get into. Brings out what looks like a rotting crop and probably like a whip or something. And she's like, okay. But she likes the idea that, you know, his skin, like that could, hit her skin. Like, she likes the idea of this. So this sounds like she's been having fantasies and she hasn't said anything to anyone. And then he says to her, "You want your punishment?" And she's like, "Punishment?" So he blindfolds her, uh, pulls her hands behind her back. She gets smacks on the ass. No, he did her nipples first. And then it was like this, it was like it hurt, and then it was this nice sensation afterwards. Of course, he's asking her, "What do you think? What have you been thinking about? Have you thought about me?" She says, "Yes." He says, "I want to know what you were thinking about when you thought about me." And so she admits to him something she's never admitted to anyone, which is that she wants to be punished. So I'm like, because I was like, these have got to be fantasies for her to be excited about the idea of that touching her skin. She's got to have thought about that whole, S&M type relationship. So clearly she has. So she gets some lashes on her ass, and then he plunges inside of her. They have this nice hard fuck. He doesn't let her come. He flips her over, and then he starts like this shallow fucking her. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, why are you doing this to me?" And he just kept saying this shit about no boundaries. There should be no secrets. All this type of shit. Also, before they had started fucking, she did tell him she got the depot shot. Instead of like getting on the pills, she just took the depot shot, which he liked because he wanted to come inside of her, you know? So he told her, "I'm going to fuck you, I'm going to come inside of you." And sure enough, that's what he does. So he did make sure she came. And then afterwards, they're sitting there and she sees the tattoo and she asks him, like, "Well, why did you get this necklace, that design, the same as your tattoo?" And he says it's to represent endless possibilities. She's like, "But that doesn't make sense because it really isn't." She's like, "Because you won't let me know anything really about you. You shut down, but yet I have to open up, you know?" He says it's to protect you. She's like, "The contract and all that doesn't seem like it's protecting me. It seems like it's there to protect you." She's like, "I had to look you up on Wikipedia to find out something about you because I can't get anything from you. Again, this is where, see, I'm a firm believer in you give me what you ask for. What you ask for. If you want complete honesty, then I need that too. I don't feel that I have to be an open book, but you don't. I don't think that's fair. But I think when you have these types of relationships, fair is not what it's about. You know what I mean? There is a control issue that someone has. And so that means you will not get as much of them as you maybe want, because they're going to give you what they want to give you because it's based on what they want. He is in control of this relationship. And so if I tell you from Jump Street, love gone, I don't feel like I'm going to learn that much about you because you're going to do everything to keep me at a distance. So then she tells him, I don't think this is going to work. Thankfully, in the contract, there's like a 2-week grace period. And so he's like, no, we're not doing that. She's like, no, that's what we're going to have to do. She's like, because this is not going to work for me. She's like, this is going to be a problem. She's like, I wasn't thinking clearly. And then the desperation that comes across his face. And he's like, please just give it more time. He says, what we have is amazing. Like, why would you want to ruin this? And of course, he's talking about that physical connection, you know? And it could be too, it could be great sex, right? It could be. How long was it before the last time you had somebody? You know what I mean? It could also be you don't really want to go through that type of drought. It could be a lot of reasons. And so he's like, go to dinner with me. He's like, I have an hour before I have to go back. And she's like, you know what? That's not going to work because I'm studying with Keith. And he goes, Keith, the guy from the coffee shop? And she goes, yeah, he's been helping me study. He's going to come over here. She's like, is that a problem? He's like, yeah, and he's absolutely not coming over here. He's like, I see the way he looks at you. She says, not everyone looks at me. She says, not everyone that looks at me wants to fuck me. It's absolutely nothing like that with him. But we already know, Sam done already peep game. She knows that Keith is feeling her. But she's in La La Land. Okay? Just for the record. It doesn't, she's just telling him that. And maybe it's because on her end, it isn't anything, right? She doesn't see Keith that way. So it's like, what are you even, like, why are you tripping? He was not having it. He was like, they can't come here. She's like, well, fine. We'll go to the library. He's like, after you take the exam, he's like, I'll give you a tour of X First, a private tour. Now, she's not turning that down because that's like the dream to work for that place. And so we fast forward, and after she leaves from her exam, she was so nervous. Poor girl. She thought she was about to throw up. But she gets through it, and then the driver, Henry, comes and picks her up, and she gets a text from Evan saying, like, are you on your way? Like, where are you? And she waits before she messages him back. And she's like, we're on our way. We just got on the freeway. And he's like, okay, good. So then when she gets there, he's standing outside. He's waiting for her. And he says to her, you know, I miss you so much. All this type of stuff. So again, it's like, okay, this ain't supposed to be no feely. What you doing all this time? I miss you. And this, where are you? Why are you doing all of this? These are things that people do when they can have a control problem. It could be that. But when they're really into someone, they're really trying to, like, this seems a little over, let me say this seems a little overboard for that too. I'm just going to go with, this is a person with a control issue. It could be somebody that likes you, but maybe somebody that likes you more than you like them. I don't know. He's being very intense is what I'm saying, you know. But I guess he's desperate because he knows she's on the verge of ending this and he doesn't want that to happen. So then it's like, okay, are you trying to give her a false what's the word, a false feeling that you care a little bit more than you do. You know what I mean? Because you're desperate. They're taking the tour and he talks about something and she has an idea, and come to find out they had just reached the conclusion that she was just talking about. And so he kind of looked at her really in awe, because it's like she's really smart, you know? So then he, tries to kiss her and she backs up. And he's like, "Why are you doing that?" And she's like, "I don't want anyone to see me doing that with you." Now, she tells him she's not comfortable with affection in public. But what it is that if she ever gets a job here, she doesn't want people to think that she fucked her ways to get here. So then she decides to tell him, "I think it's best that we let this go." Well, he, however, is looking furious, but he's trying to control himself. And he says that we will go somewhere private and we will have this conversation. Because he didn't care about anyone seeing her, kissing her. He didn't care about that, but she did. And so she again tells him it's just too much and I just shouldn't have made this decision. So they go somewhere in private. The room is dark, and then he does something on his phone and the room lights up. It's like mission control. And she asks him, "Is this like your mission control?" And so he tells her this isn't over. He tells her this is not over until I say it's over. And I said, "Oh shit, we got a nut job." So she's like, "What do you mean it's not over until you say so? That's not what that contract says, you know?" And he's like, "This is too good. Why are you trying to stop this? Like, why? No one else can please you the way that I can. Why are you doing this?" And she's like, "Because it's not going to work. You don't want to tell me anything about yourself. It's just," he says, I don't want to have to keep fighting to try and, talk to you, to figure you out. I don't want to have to do that." So he, of course, starts kissing her. She starts drowning again. He starts fingering her, and it's just too much. Again, he overwhelms her senses. He knows what he's doing because he wants the outcome that he wants. And she clearly is going towards another conclusion, and he isn't like that. So she backs up from him. She's like, "Stop. No, we're not doing this anymore." He's like, "Are you serious? Is this what you really want?" And she's like, "No, you're trying to confuse me." She's like, "You got to tell me something real." And he's like, "I can't do the feeling things. It doesn't work." And she's like, "How do you know it doesn't work? What happened? Tell me what happened." So eventually what he tells her wasn't about a girlfriend. It was about his mom. So his father used to physically hurt his mom every day. And it got to the point where she stopped eating and she withered away. She died. And he had tried to get her to leave so many times. I think he was like 10 years old around the time. And she wouldn't do it. She said, "We need him." And so he feels like he's got to be like his father. Some part of him is like that. And that if I keep the barriers up, then I don't have to worry about hurting someone. That's his reasoning. Of course, after that confession, she kisses him. They have a nice hard fuck. He tells her not to make a sound because, people will probably hear him, but she makes a moan. And yeah, that's what happened. So also, I forgot, before they started, he ate her pussy. He had put those silver balls in there. I forget the name of them. And they were in another book. They've been in a couple books we've read. And I can't remember what the name of those balls are. But they're the ones that you put in your cooch. And they're supposed to tighten it or whatever. They have a name. It'll come to me later after I'm done recording. He says to her, "Good girl, I'll let you come before I do." Sure enough, that's when, the hard fuck happens. And then he nuts inside of her, and then she straighten it up, and the door opens. And the person's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He got in front of her so no one could see her, exposed. And he's like, I'll be out in a minute. And so then after he left out, the people left out, he kind of hits the wall like, fuck, I should have been more careful. And she's like, no, it's okay. He's like, no, it's not. It's not okay. So now he's starting to shut down. He tells her he'll walk her down. She wants to finish the tour. She's like, you can get, I can do it with someone else. And he's like, no, everyone's busy. We have a launch in a few days. And she's like, okay. So she leaves. He told her he was going to call her in a couple days, but she didn't hear from him. It has now been 6 days and still hasn't heard anything from him. She sent him 2 messages, no response. So Sam comes over and tells her, guess what? Came for you, your results from the exam. Yay, she passed. So excited. She wants to go out to celebrate the next night. There's a place called the Playroom that she's heard about. It's new, so they're going to have different people come in. Really make it a group affair. I think Keith is definitely going to come as well. Well, then she gets a call from Miriam, Evan's assistant, saying that he would like to take her out tomorrow night. Well, she says no. There's a 48-hour rule that he's supposed to let me know, and I already have plans. And Miriam's like, I don't think he's going to be too happy about this because he moved some pretty important meetings around to do this. And she says, I don't care. We have that rule in place for a reason. I have plans. I am not changing my plans. That's it. So Sam is like, you've been pining for this man all week, moping, sad, watching Friends, because that's what she does when she's sick or depressed. She's like, and now you're blowing him off? And she's like, I'm not blowing him off, but it's not okay. I'm not his slave. I have plans, and I'm not going to abandon them. It's just simple as that. So now she's kind of wondering what this pushback is going to mean for her. It's probably going to be some awesome sex, afterwards. But it'll be that, she's not. And I get that, right? Because if you have plans with folks, then you're not going to try and intrude. But that's what I mean, where it was kind of like when he made that comment, but I do want to be really important to you. It's like that manipulation thing. Again, trying to get control some kind of way. And that's not cute to me. She may like it. I just think it's a little much. And I think, especially if you've gone 6 days and you may have a lot going on, be very busy, but you can shoot a text and say something to somebody. You can, So you can't make somebody feel like they're shit and then get mad when they go, okay, fine. You think I'm shit? Don't worry about it. I'm going to treat you the same way. But again, there's that imbalance of control, and she, no matter what he says, she's supposed to be at his beck and call. That's what he wants. I mean, you got to think, he's providing the funds. So it's not a regular relationship. And the dynamics that you would want in a regular relationship where there's not this imbalance, I mean, this is how you're going to go through these type of things, clearly. So she goes out. She has her lemon drops. Girl is getting drunk. So she's dancing on the dance floor with Keith. They're grinding. She went and got another drink. Now, Sam had been telling her, like, you need to slow down. Slow down. She's not listening. She goes back on the dance floor because Keith was pulling her back like, come on, let's dance, let's dance. Go back. Grinding. She twerking on him. All of a sudden, what the fuck are you doing? It's our boy, Evan. He is fuming. So he winds up taking her outside. Keith is right there. And he's like, because it looks like someone's harming her, Like, this doesn't look okay. And she's drunk, but when what she thinks she sounds like, she doesn't sound like that. She sounds terrified, which puts Keith on high alert, Eventually, Sam gets him to, like, come on, give them some time to talk, X, Y, and Z. Maddie's like, I'm okay, blah, blah, blah. So, Keith leaves, and Evan is like, what are you doing? You're not even wearing your necklace. He's like, what the hell, And she's like, well, you ignored me for a week. So I wanted to come out and blow off some steam and celebrate with my friends. And so she was about to walk back into the club, and he comes and grabs her, and he's like, I wanted to celebrate with you tonight, you know? And you would have known that if you would have came with me. So he's like, you're coming with me. So they get into his brand new Tesla. It's parked in the red zone. They drive for however long. Guess where they are? They're at the Exeter house. But it's not in the hotel. He's taking her to his fucking penthouse. She is floored. So when they get up there, first of all, it's stunning, okay? Clearly he paid a fortune to have this place decorated. It's very much white off white's glass. It's stunning. If you don't like the type of thing, you probably be like, oh, this is super pretentious. But if you do, it's stunning. So she was like, I thought you didn't bring people here. And he's like, I don't. But with what you pulled tonight, me having to walk in and see that guy's hands all over you, you know, and she's like, Keith is just my friend. He's pissed. He's like, you tell me right now, or I'll let you go. He's like, if you stay, then you do everything my way. You obey me. You bend to me. He says, if you can't do that, then you leave. You can stay in the house that you're in as long as you need to until you find a place. I'll still provide you the money I said, but you will never see me again. Well, you already know that does it, right? That threat does it. There's an ache that she physically feels at the thought of never seeing him again. And that works. And so he tells her to go to her knees, and she goes straight to her knees. She starts sucking him off. He's testing her gag reflexes. He puts a choker around her, what she thought felt like a pendant, but it wasn't. It was a padlock. She's like, what the fuck is this? And he's like, do you want to take it off so soon after you promise to obey me? And she's like, no. He's like, it's proof of what you said you'd do, that you would always obey me. And I'm like, oh shit. So this is absolute obedience. And I'm like, this is going to be a trip. Everything that she could kind of do before, he's stripping her of that. All of her freedoms. I don't think it's cute. He's gonna make her stay at this penthouse for a week. She's got to wear that collar. Nothing but that collar and being naked while she's in the penthouse. She can never see Keith again, not even to study. He took her phone. He permitted her to have one phone call. She called Sam. Sam didn't answer, so she left a message saying that, Evan surprised her with the last minute Mexico vacation. Then she tells him, like, but what about school, And he says, I'll handle your professors. And again, the other way, she had some freedom. There were stipulations with some things, but she still had freedom. But now because you caught her dancing with somebody, it's like she has to do this absolute obedience thing that, I don't know, he wants complete domination. And I don't know. I just think it's a lot. So he goes and gets a tray of like cheeses, meats, and fruits, and water, and ibuprofen, so she won't have a hangover. And then he's like, you're going to need it for what we're about to do next. And I'm like, oh Lord, this is going to be a mess. So he gets her like spread eagle style on the bed, tied up. She can't move. She can't come unless he tells her. He keeps edging her, and she is so incredibly frustrated. He winds up jacking off, coming on her stomach. She's so frustrated. She's begging, because he had told her, you have to beg me. She's begging him. It's like it's not enough. She's like, please just finish me. He's like, nope, maybe next time. And then he wipes her off, and after, because he had nutted on her breast and stuff. And then he leaves her there, and eventually around 3 o'clock, she falls asleep. Keep in mind, she's still spread eagle. So he was like, in the morning, like I guess before the sunrise, he was like eating her pussy, but he still would not let her come. He tells her she needs a bath and stuff. He lets her loose. She winds up pouring water on him. And she says, that's to express my displeasure. And so it's all about his needs. It's turning her on, she says. And while they're in the shower, he sticks a finger in her ass. And then he takes a candle, starts pushing that in and out. And he was just like, when she resisted, he was like, you told me you would give me everything. You told me you would give all of yourself to me. So if you're not going to do it, I'll leave you tied up in that bed for another day. So of course she's going to concede, because she doesn't want to be tied up again like that. So then afterwards, he tells her to be kneeling in the bedroom and wait for him until he comes back. He gives her like a little bathrobe to put on because she was cold. And he told her to stay there on her knees and she better not leave. And so she's calling him master by this time as well, which is very much appealing to him. He loves this shit because he wanted her complete obedience. He comes back. Girl was just about to break, so he came back in good timing. He has some food for her to eat, but he feeds it to her, which is degrading. But she doesn't say anything. And then he takes her to bed and he starts playing with her ass again. He starts sticking 2 fingers and then 3 fingers in there. She's tensing up and he's like, you told me you would give me everything. You wanted to please me. I won your ass. So you need to give me what I want. He's like, if you can't do it, you need to make a decision if you're not going to do this. And so it's like, oh my gosh, she tells him yes. So of course he fucks her in the ass. He allows her to come while he plays with her clit and stuff, and it's a very explosive orgasm. And he of course tells her, you've pleased me. And she realizes whatever resistance she had, he broke her. She is unequivocally his. He then takes her, cleans her up, gives her a shower. She thought he was going to fuck her again in the shower, but he didn't. He picks her up, carries her to another room. The room that they were in, I thought was his bedroom, but it wasn't. It was just another room in the house, in the penthouse. He takes her to his actual bedroom, and she's like, why am I here? He says, we both didn't sleep well last night, so he holds her, and they fall asleep. So then the next day, he tells her they're going somewhere. He has her put on some clothes. She's still got to put that collar on. It's got some magnetic balls with it, and I think it's attached somewhere to her clit or something. And she had heard like that there was a sex club at the Exeter, like a dungeon or something like that within this place somewhere. So I'm wondering, is he going to try and push her boundary with that? Because she remember one of her hard no's was, I don't want orgy, any group sex. It's like, is he going to push past that? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's looking like he's trying to break every single hard no she had. I don't think that's cute. Especially when you don't even want to talk about yourself. He takes her on a mini tour of the Exeter house. He's got to go. He's got to go to work. He's like, he'll be back, I think around 4. He tells her like the first 3 floors are where people can like rent rooms, like a hotel type of thing. There's a spa, all kind of stuff for her to do. He tells her she can get whatever she wants. She can shop, whatever. A lady comes up and helps her, and she winds up going to the spa. Absolutely amazing. She had never had a deep tissue massage. She had a light lunch, and then she has these other women come in, and they have collars on too. So clearly, they're in this lifestyle as well. And so one of the women says, you must be Evan's new girl. And another woman in there said something about an incident that happened the previous year, but she doesn't go into detail. And the other woman stopped her from telling the story. So she leaves from there. She gets lost. She goes in a room. There's a guy there named Ash Grayson. And he tells her, he'll help her Um, and she says she's Evan's mate. No, I'm sorry. He says he's Evan's mate. But he was like, just let him know that I didn't touch you. Tell him I didn't touch you. And she's like, okay, that's kind of weird, but okay. She goes upstairs. She's studying. Evan comes home later, and she had her earphones in, so she didn't hear him come in. And he's like all hard for her, and he's like, um, what did he say? I forget, but he fucks her mouth, and he said something about an incident. Did she bring it up? Yeah, she brought it up to him. She was like telling him about her day and saying what the women had said. And she was like, what happened? And he's just like, oh, people just gossip all the time. And he leaves. But she clearly knows something happened. So the next few days, they're like basically in a routine. Early in the morning, he wakes her up. She sucks him off. He goes to work. She has work sent from her professors. She does that. She roams the Exeter house. And when he comes home, they fuck relentlessly. And it's a pattern. And it's like they've settled into a routine. And so, after, I think we're getting close to, it's about time for her to go back to where she actually stays. He leaves her some coffee and a note that says there's a gala, be ready at 8. And she's like, okay. She's wondering how things are going to go when it's time for her to go back to where she's been living at the cottage house. And things are going to be different, clearly, but she's wondering about it. So Miriam calls her on the phone, lets her know like a glam squad is coming over. She's got this beautiful satin blue dress to wear. They come and get her ready. He comes home. He, of course, wants to fuck her, but they got to go to this event. He gives her the collar, the one that he gave her before, because the necklace that he's been making her wear in this penthouse is really not appropriate for the public. So he gives her the other one, and he tells her, like, people are still going to know that you're mine because it has that infinity symbol. So they'll know that. So she's been drinking some champagne. And eventually she's like, I gotta use the bathroom. So she goes to Tinkle, and a woman is in there. So when she comes out, she's like, you're Evan's new girl, aren't you? And she's like, yes. And she's like, I used to date him. Be careful. He'll fuck you up. And she's like, basically telling her that he's put multiple girlfriends. Like, they've either turned to drugs, um, they have gone crazy. And she states that his fiance took herself out. She's like, he's a bad guy. And I just wish someone would have warned me. So now this is in her head. She goes back to the table. He squeezes her leg, well, her thigh. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't react. He can tell, she can tell he's pissed off. But she just focuses on the stage, listening to the person giving their speech. So they get in the car, and of course he wants to know what's wrong with her. She knows if she tries to tell him nothing, he's not going to buy it, so she tells him what's up. He, of course, goes, damn it, I knew when I saw Whitney she was going to try and seek you out. And she was like, I saw her there with like some D-level actor. And she just wants to know, is it true? He says, my past is none of your business. You and me are nothing but sex. And she realizes, again, that contract is about making sure he has control over something you can't control, which is human emotion. And so she tells him she's in love with him. And he tells her this is nothing but two people fucking. He tells her when she gets out the car, he says, you can sleep there tonight, the penthouse. He says, tomorrow you go back to the cottage house and I'll have Miriam send over the termination paperwork. This is over. And she's just like crushed. And she just says, okay, whatever. Doesn't cry in front of him. She goes upstairs and then she allows herself to cry. Next day she moves out. She doesn't take anything Uh, she moved back in with the girls. She's been studying her ass off. That's her focus. Her thoughts, of course, are assumed by Evan. We fast forward a month. Her and Sam are on their way to the lab because she's got some experiments and some papers she's got to write. And Sam tells her that her cousin told her he's looking for a new mistress. He's doing interviews. It hurts her, but there's nothing she can do about it. You know, it is what it is. She passed by like the financial office. She went in and talked to them about like a payment plan, even though she can't get her job back at the coffee shop because they already filled the position. But she still went in to talk to them about a payment plan. The woman says, "You're settled." That was like a $250,000 payment that was made last week by Evan Cole. And so she's like, "Oh, really?" So then at first she starts to think, well, maybe he did it because he does feel something. And then she almost texted him, but then she thought, no, he's probably just doing that out of guilt because he ended the contract, you know? Few more weeks go by. She's in the lab with Keith. Keith asks her to go grab some lunch. She's like, cool, I'm down. They're leaving out. She's talking with Keith and stuff. And she sees Evan. He's with a group of people. Looks like the president of the school, staff, all kind of stuff. Keith, of course, is alarmed at seeing him. He says, you know why he's here, right? There's going to be a launch that they're going to do shortly. And she's like, oh, okay, you know. Well, then she looks at Evan, like looking at Keith with this like dark expression. And she plays this shit up. So she whispers something about the Marvel movie in Keith's ear, which makes him smile. And now Evan looks even more pissed than before. Now she knows she shouldn't have used Keith like that, but she wanted Evan to feel the pain that he inflicted on her. So then after that, Keith asked her if she's okay, and she was just like, "Why do people keep asking me that? I'm fine, you know." He was like, "I was just asking cuz it's not every day that you run into an ex." And she's just like, "I'm fine. I'm moving forward." She gets a text from who she thinks is going to be Sam, but it's not. It's Evan. He texts her, I miss you. Can we meet for coffee? Meet me at 3. She was going to say something slick, but then she was like, you know what? I'm not responding with anything. She deletes the message, deletes him out of her phone, turns her phone off. She's done. So then she gets to the lab and Keith shows her a video. It's an interview of old boy Evan at the school with a woman interviewer who asked him about his love life. He said there is someone, well, there was someone, but I was, I messed it up, but I'm in love with her. And Keith, of course, is like, don't tell me you're falling for this, and all this type of crap. And she's just like, no, yes, I don't know, it's a lot, So they leave out from there. He's like, can I walk you home? She said, sure. They're walking. They get bombarded by a bunch of, students. And they're just like, did you hear what he said? Are you guys going to get back together? Like all these questions. So Keith pushes through the people, gets her back to her place. And then he tells her, like, I know you got a lot going on. But then he kisses her. And it feels weird. It makes her feel like she's cheating on Evan, even though she's not. But it feels weird. And he's like, I'm sorry. She's like, no, it's not you, it's me. But it is him. Because you know what? He sees what you're going through. And he's, again, he's trying to force you to give him a look. And it's probably not the right time to do that. Like, she just got it's like, you just heard a man confess his love for her. We don't know if this shit's real or a game or whatever. But that's fucking with her head. And now you're trying to fuck with her head. Because you want her to consider you. So it's like, it's the same bullshit, just different levels. You know what I mean? Like, Evan's got a lot of money, so he's able to influence a certain way. But then you have old boy Keith, but he's trying to influence her as well, but he ain't got that kind of shmoney. It's just, but they're still trying to take control over it, and no one's asking her what the fuck she wants. They just want you to know what they want. One and the same is how I see it. I don't know. He pissed me off. Keith did with that little episode. But anyway, she goes upstairs. She sneaks up the back way. She just wants to get, away from everyone. She wants to get over Evan. And it, of course, made her feel some type of way to hear him say what he said. But again, it feels like he's just jerking her around. She's told you she loves you. You say it back to her to try and get her back, but you really don't mean it. I understand why she feels that way. He's been playing a game. So I get why she's confused. Her girls, of course, come up to her room. They're like, the phone's been ringing off the hook, the landline. There's reporters that want a statement. She's like, just tell them no comment. I just want to be by myself. I just need to be alone. So they leave, and they're like, we'll give you your space. And then she winds up drifting off to sleep, because she took up meditation to help her, and it did, and she fell asleep. So she wakes up to a boom, boom, boom. Her room is right above the front door. So she looks out. Evan's out there. She cracks open the window, and she can't make everything out that's been said, but her girl slammed the door in his face. He yells out, fuck. He's walking towards his car. He comes back when he turns around and looks and sees her in the window. He calls her phone. Clearly, he can't get through to her because she's blocked him. She decides to just close the window, put the curtains back, just to block him out. She said, the problem is she's always going to want more and he's never going to give it to her. And she's just not settling anymore. She's not going to do it. She's not going to play these games. She's done. And of course, it does unfortunately make her cry. The next day, she has a lecture that's being done. And so she's like, you know what? I'm going to go to this lecture. Thankfully, there's a seat in the back. The lecture's kind of boring. Boom! In pops in Evan. And so he's like, I'm looking for Madeline Swanson. I was told she would be here. And so he finds her, comes up the steps, 2 steps at a time. He tells her how sorry he is and all this type of stuff. And so she sees all the phones up, what people get trying to get this moment. And she's like, we are not having this conversation here. I will talk to you after the lecture. So then after the lecture, he's pacing outside, waiting for her. They go and find a room. They talk. He tells her, listen, I'll give you whatever stipulation you want in the contract. You make it up, like, I'll do it. She's like, I don't want to make another contract. He's like, but it's to protect us. She's like, no, it's not. We don't need that. Haven't you figured that shit out? Like, emotions are going to happen. You cannot stop that. There's no kind of contract you can do that's going to stop it. It's just what it is. Well, his thing is, he's like, I broke those other people. She's like, you didn't break them, but you seem to not understand that people can develop feelings and they can't help that and they shouldn't be punished for it, And she lets him know it's going to be you and me, no contract. She tells him, I love you. I want to be with you. Love is about having a choice and choosing to be with that person and you trusting that they'll stay there. But I can leave if I'm not happy, and you can leave if you're not happy, And what did he did something else. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. She was about to walk out of the room and he got on his knees. And that's when she realized he was at her total submission. Like he was a goner. He told her how much he loved her and needed her. And that he didn't recognize that it was love at first. He just thought it was intense sexual, an intense sexual connection. He's like, but he has been absolutely miserable. He's like, the night you left, I didn't sleep. I paced back and forth. She let him know that she knew about the fact that, he had started doing fucking interviews and shit, And he was like, I stopped them. I couldn't do it, I didn't want anyone else. I just wanted you. And that was it. And so he takes her back to the penthouse. They, of course, have this marathon lovemaking session. And he, of course, is like, I can't lose you. Like, losing you, that shit don't work. We fast forward 6 months. She's still living with the girls because her school's there, She's in Pasadena, which is where Caltech is, and Malibu is like an hour away. So of course she's not gonna move in with him. Um, she does tell him once I graduate, because he of course wants her to move in. She says once I graduate, then we can revisit this conversation. But right now, it's not feasible, you know. So they're gonna have a New Year's Eve party. They're inviting her friends, and it's also like a meetup because they couldn't get together for Christmas. So they're having a Christmas like type of shindig as well. Lexi comes, but she only stays for a minute. She's got to go meet someone. And then Ash Grayson comes by to drop off some champagne because Evan really doesn't have friends. He has like associates, but he's starting to open up to people, so that's starting to change. So that's good. Um, Keith even came. He was nice to Keith. It was a nice exchange. Again, there's trust, so he's not freaking out about Keith. He knows she wants only him. You know, she's not worried about anyone else, so he's cool. Um, they're having a great time, and then he winds up proposing to her. It's a huge diamond in the middle, and on the side, the band is made of like the infinity sign. I thought that was cute, but now it's like that means, you know, forever. You know what I'm saying? It means something besides endless possibilities. You know, it means infinity with you. It means something. So he of course tells her, I don't ever want to go another day without you. And that is how their story ends. Now, remember I said each book is one of their, you know, is a story, a separate story. So the next book is Lexi's story. And all I'm going to tell you is that they give you a little preview. And Lexi's been dating some guy named David. And David is a potential person to get into the Exeter house. Okay. And he had told her to meet him in a room, which she did, and she thought it was this sexy thing. And so lights are off, she doesn't see anything. She gets on the bed, she starts fucking somebody, and she realizes this is not David. So she's fucked a stranger. And so she barges out of there. She's freaking out. She winds up calling. Well, she left her phone and everything, so she had the front desk like call up to Evan's place, and him and what's her face, Madeline, they talk, and they're like, you know, what did you do? Because they thought, I was thinking as I was reading, like, did she get violated? But no, she was freaking out because of what had happened. She's messed with someone and she doesn't know who it is. So that's the preview they give for Lexi. So if that's one you guys want to jump into, you all can jump into the other books. It looks like the other ones are all about the girls that she was living with, which I think is cute. What did you all think of this? I really liked it. The only thing for me I think that I didn't like was really those sessions at the first sessions at the penthouse. Like when he brought her there, it was like this duress moment. She's drunk. Um and he cornered her, I feel, into a decision to get what he really wanted, which was for her to do whatever he said. And then to use it against her with everything. I didn't like that. I didn't think that was cute. I think some people have a kink and they like certain stuff, but some people are not complete submissives. And I don't think Madeline is a complete submissive. I think she has some submissive ways in her, but she's not a complete submissive to where she doesn't have a mind of her own and you got to guide her completely. She's not like that. And I felt like he was trying to change her into that because he thought if she was that, it would make it better for everyone. And I didn't like that. That ticked me off with him. But other than that, it was a great story. I really did like it. I wish we could have dove a little bit more into the father, maybe have him pop up. That could have been cute. Just saying. But what did you guys think? Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.